This is a work that I am particularly drawn to. It packs a visual punch. First of all, the colors are so vivid. In fact, you can say they're brash. And then there's the imagery itself, which is very graphic. And then, of course, what wraps it all together is the text that's emblazoned in the upper register. Trust visions that don't feature buckets of blood. My name is Paulina Pobocha. I'm an associate curator in the Department of Painting and Sculpture at the Museum of Modern Art. This work is a collaboration between two artists, Jenny Holzer and Lady Pink. It was made in New York between 1983 and 1984. So Jenny Holzer is an artist primarily known for her work with language. Early on in her career, by that I mean just a few years prior to this, in the late 70s, she was making work where she would place pithy phrases on broadsheets and then take those broadsheets and wheat paste them all over New York City. And that's how she met Lady Pink, who's a graffiti artist. And I would want to mention one of the few female graffiti artists working in New York at that time. Once the two met, they struck up a friendship and decided to collaborate on what ended up being a total of 11 paintings. So Holzer is responsible for the text. So trust visions that don't feature buckets of blood is part of a larger group of phrases that she together titled Survival. The words themselves were not rendered by Holzer, but by another artist, Ilana Granite, who did a lot of sign painting. The painting itself is executed by Lady Pink using all spray paint. But the imagery comes from somewhere else altogether. From what I can tell, this is a composite of at least 3 photographs taken by the documentary photographer Susan Meiselas when she was in Nicaragua covering the Nicaraguan Revolution between 1978 and 1979. And that's a lot to digest. And I think that's part of what really attracts me to this work, are all the layers and how those layers kind of interact and interplay with each other on the surface of the canvas. I first encountered this painting in a gallery in London. I think it was in 2017, early 2017, shortly after the last election. And it was a moment where I think so many of us felt unsure of what the future held. And I think there was a lot of anxiety at that time, just not knowing the direction in which the United States would go over the course of the next 4 years. And when I saw this painting, and when I read that, trust visions that don't feature buckets of blood, I mean, it still gives me goosebumps because, you know, on the one hand, you're envisioning the absolute worst. On the other hand, which is what they've pictured, and on the other hand, you know, there's a kind of a great deal of optimism in that text. You know, the trusting, the wanting something better than what it is, than what we see pictured here. And I think now in 2020, after this year of chaos, of uncertainty, of tremendous loss, this text, I think, is more relevant than ever. The idea of trusting in perhaps a better future.